5 sentences. That is all it takes to hand a prosecutor everything they need before they have even decided whether to file a charge. Not lies, not confessions in the dramatic sense. Just the ordinary, instinctive, completely human things people say at a traffic stop because staying silent feels rude, because explaining yourself feels honest, because answering a direct question feels like basic decency. In 2026, with body cams running on nearly every patrol officer in this country and dash cams capturing audio from the moment the lights activate, every single word at that window is preserved, time-stamped, backed up, and available to a prosecutor for years after the stop itself is a distant memory to you. This video names the 5 sentences that show up over and over in police reports, probable cause affidavits, and courtroom transcripts. The 5 things that quietly convert a routine stop into a documented case. We are going to go through each one, explain exactly why it does the damage it does, and give you the precise replacement language for every single one. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, and drop a comment below with your own traffic stop story. What happened? What you said? What you wish you had known going in? Because your experience is what helps every other driver who watches this prepare for theirs before they ever need to. Before the 5 things, here is why this matters more right now than it did even 5 years ago, and why a video like this could not have existed in its current form a decade ago. Body-worn camera adoption among American law enforcement agencies has continued to expand year over year, and a significant majority of departments nationwide now require activation for every traffic stop, not just escalated encounters. Dash cams with always-on audio buffering are standard factory and aftermarket equipment in patrol vehicles across the country, which means the recording often begins before the officer even exits the vehicle, capturing ambient conversation, radio chatter, and context that used to disappear into memory. What this means practically, for you, standing at that window, is that nothing said at a traffic stop is a private conversation between you and one officer who might misremember it later, soften it in his report, or simply forget the specifics by the time anyone asks. It is a permanent, time-stamped, audio and video recording, reviewed by supervisors as a matter of department policy, retained according to data retention schedules that often run for years, available to prosecutors building a case, and discoverable by defense attorneys trying to take one apart. The 5 things drivers say without thinking are not just words that evaporate into the night air. They are exhibits. They are transcribed. They are played back, sometimes multiple times, in front of judges and juries who were not there and who form their entire impression of what happened from exactly what that recording captured. The gap between what feels like a harmless, polite, completely normal response in the moment and what that same response actually documents on a permanent record has never been wider than it is with today's recording standards. And it keeps widening every year that recording technology improves and retention policies expand. The first thing never to say is any version of "I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was going that fast," or "I'm sorry, I didn't see the sign," or "I'm sorry, I know I shouldn't have done that." This sounds, on its face, like nothing more than basic human politeness. The same instinct that makes you apologize when you bump into a stranger on the sidewalk. But at a traffic stop, with the body cam running, this sentence is doing something very different from manners. It is an admission, captured on a permanent recording, that becomes part of the factual record of the encounter. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was going that fast" concedes the underlying speed allegation while only disputing your awareness of it, and your awareness of your speed is legally irrelevant to whether the violation actually occurred. The citation does not require the officer to prove you knew you were speeding. It requires him to establish that you were speeding. You have just done that work for him, on camera, in your own voice, with your own words, before he has presented a single piece of independent evidence. "I'm sorry, I know I shouldn't have done that" is even more direct, a flat concession of fault with no qualification at all. None of this is legally required of you, and none of it actually accomplishes the social goal you are hoping for. You can be completely polite, completely respectful, and completely non-confrontational without conceding a single fact. "I understand, officer," acknowledges the interaction, acknowledges that you heard him, and maintains a cooperative tone, all without admitting the violation occurred. Save any factual dispute about your actual speed, the visibility of a sign, or the surrounding circumstances for traffic court, where the citation can be contested with evidence, with the officer's own equipment calibration records, with witness testimony if relevant, rather than conceded at the window, under stress, in the dark, with a recording running that will outlive your memory of the moment by years. The second thing never to say is any version of "I only had a couple of drinks," or "It was just one beer a while ago," or "I had a glass of wine with dinner, but that was hours ago." Whether you are completely sober, mildly buzzed, or genuinely impaired, this sentence is one of the single most damaging things you can say at any stop where alcohol or impairment is suspected, and it is damaging in the same way regardless of which of those three categories actually describes you. It converts whatever the officer's initial basis was, a subjective smell claim, a generalized suspicion, an observation that could mean any number of things, into a documented, time-stamped, voluntary admission of consumption. The specific number you provide does not actually protect you once it is in the report. One beer and a few drinks both become the officer's anchor point for everything that follows. Further investigative questioning, a request for field sobriety tests, a roadside breathalyzer request, and ultimately, if things escalate, a probable cause affidavit that quotes your own words back to you in front of a judge. The Fifth Amendment exists precisely for this moment, and it exists specifically so that you do not have to make this calculation under pressure, in the dark, with lights flashing behind you. You are not required to answer any question about what you have or have not consumed, when you consumed it, or how much. I am invoking my right to remain silent on that question, is the entire, complete, sufficient response. You do not need to add anything else to it. You do not need to explain why you are invoking it. The right exists, and using it is not evidence of anything. The third thing never to say is "Go ahead, search if you want. I have nothing to hide," or any close variation of it, including "Sure, take a look," or "Yeah, that's fine, go for it." This sentence is a complete, full, voluntary waiver of your Fourth Amendment protection for the entire scope of whatever gets searched. It requires the officer to have no probable cause at all. It requires no warrant. It requires no independent justification of any kind, because your own words are the entire legal basis for everything that happens next. Innocent people consent to searches at traffic stops constantly, confident that nothing in the car could possibly cause a problem, and then spend the following months explaining a forgotten item in a jacket pocket, an old prescription bottle without its label, a pocket knife that exceeds a length restriction they never knew existed, or something that belongs to a passenger or a previous driver of a borrowed or family vehicle that has nothing to do with them at all. None of that confusion is necessary. I do not consent to any search of my vehicle or my person. Costs you absolutely nothing if you genuinely have nothing in the vehicle that could ever be a problem. The search either does not happen, or it happens anyway on some entirely independent legal basis that the officer must then establish and document on his own, without your help. And if you do have something you are even slightly uncertain about, this single sentence preserves every protection you have rather than handing it away with a casual go-ahead that takes less than 2 seconds to say, and that you cannot take back once a search has begun. The fourth thing never to say is any detailed answer to "Where are you coming from?" and "Where are you headed tonight?" Out of every question asked at a traffic stop, this is the one that feels the most harmless, the most like ordinary small talk, and it is precisely because it feels so harmless that drivers answer it more freely and more completely than almost any other question at the stop. "I was at my friend's house. I'm coming from work. I had a late shift. I'm headed to my sister's place across town." Each of these answers places you at a specific location, at a specific time, with a specific context, information that an investigator can quietly cross-reference against anything else that happens to be in play that night. A reported incident in the area you just named. A timeline that needs filling in for an entirely separate matter you know nothing about. A location connected to something the officer has not disclosed to you and has no obligation to disclose. You are under no obligation to explain your evening, your travel plans, your relationships, or your schedule to a law enforcement officer at a traffic stop. "I'd prefer not to discuss my plans for the evening," is a complete, polite, sufficient answer. A simple invocation of your right to remain silent closes this door just as effectively, without any confrontation, without any rudeness, and without any of the downstream consequences that a seemingly innocent, conversational answer can produce months later in a context you never anticipated when you said it. The fifth thing never to say is a direct, detailed, speculative answer to "Do you know why I pulled you over?" This is one of the most commonly asked questions at the start of any traffic stop, and it is asked for a specific strategic reason, to get you talking, to get you guessing, before the officer has stated a single fact himself. Whatever you guess in response, "I was probably speeding a little, maybe my tag is expired, I think I might have rolled through that stop sign back there, honestly I'm not sure, did I forget to signal?" becomes your own voluntary articulation of a violation that the officer may not have observed clearly enough or documented thoroughly enough to charge confidently on his own evidence alone. You have just built part of his case for him, in your own words, before he has committed to anything. The correct response is simple, calm, and not the least bit evasive or confrontational. "I'm not sure, officer, can you tell me?" This places the burden exactly where the law requires it to sit, squarely on the officer, who is required to be able to articulate a specific, objective basis for the stop, rather than letting you supply that basis for him through nothing more than nervous guessing. Here is the constitutional architecture underneath every one of these five things, because each one connects to a specific, well-established legal principle, and understanding that foundation is what makes the replacement language feel grounded rather than arbitrary. The Fifth Amendment protects you from being compelled to provide statements that could incriminate you, and that protection exists from the very first moment of a traffic stop, not only after a formal arrest, and not only once Miranda warnings have been read. Berkmare v. McCarty, decided by the United States Supreme Court, specifically confirmed that the coercive, recorded, high-pressure nature of an ordinary roadside stop matters constitutionally, even though the driver is not in the kind of formal custody that triggers the full Miranda framework. The encounter does not need to look like a television interrogation room for your underlying constitutional protections to apply. Schneckloth versus Bustamante confirms something equally important and far less widely understood. That consent to a search is considered legally valid even if you did not know, in that moment, that you had the right to refuse. The officer is under no obligation to inform you of that right before asking. The entire burden of preserving the protection rests on you, and on whether you state the refusal yourself, in your own words, before the search begins. None of the five things covered in this video are legally required of you in any state in this country. Every one of them is a habit, politeness, the instinct to explain yourself, the desire to seem cooperative and reasonable, the discomfort of silence in the presence of an authority figure, and none of those habits have anything whatsoever to do with any actual legal obligation that exists at a traffic stop. Here is the complete replacement language for all five, consolidated in one place so you can say it out loud a few times before you ever need it for real. When you feel the instinct to apologize for the alleged violation, "I understand, officer." When asked about drinking, smoking, or any substance use, "I am invoking my right to remain silent on that question." When asked to consent to a search of your vehicle or your person, "I do not consent to any search of my vehicle or my person." When asked where you are coming from or where you are headed, "I'd prefer not to discuss my plans for the evening," or simply continue invoking your right to remain silent. When asked if you know why you were pulled over, "I'm not sure, officer, can you tell me?" Every one of these five replacements is calm. Every one is brief. Every one can be said once, in a normal tone, without hostility, without raising your voice, and without turning a routine encounter into a confrontation. None of them prevent a lawful stop from running its ordinary administrative course: the license check, the registration check, the citation or the warning, the release. What they prevent is you personally supplying the additional evidence, the additional admissions, and the additional context that turn an otherwise routine and uneventful stop into something with far greater consequences than the original reason for the stop ever warranted. One final point that applies across all five replacements, because the words alone are only half of what actually protects you. Everything said at a traffic stop is being recorded not just for its content, but for its tone, its pacing, and its emotional register. A driver who delivers these five replacement sentences calmly, evenly, and without visible frustration reads on camera as someone who is informed and composed. A driver who delivers the exact same words while visibly agitated, raising their voice, or layering on sarcasm reads very differently to anyone who later reviews that footage. A judge at a suppression hearing, a prosecutor deciding whether to pursue charges, a jury forming their first impression of who you are. The words in this video work because of what they say and because of how they are said. Practice saying them out loud, in your own voice, in a normal conversational tone, before you ever need them for real. A sentence that feels natural and rehearsed in a calm moment at home is far more likely to come out calm and clear under the actual pressure of flashing lights in your mirror than a sentence you are encountering and trying to construct for the very first time in that moment. Memorize these 5 before you close this video, or better yet, write them down and keep a copy in your glove box. Never say, "I'm sorry, I didn't realize." Say, "I understand, officer." Never name a number of drinks or any substance. Say, "I am invoking my right to remain silent on that question." Never say, "Go ahead, search. I have nothing to hide." Say, "I do not consent to any search of my vehicle or my person." Never give a detailed answer about where you are coming from or headed. Say, "I'd prefer not to discuss my plans for the evening." Never guess at why you were stopped. Say, "I'm not sure, officer. Can you tell me?" 5 things never to say. 5 short, calm sentences that replace them. All grounded in the Fifth Amendment, in Berkmeier v. McCarty, and in Schneckloth versus Bustamante. This is educational content only and does not constitute legal advice. Always consult a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction for guidance specific to your circumstances. If this video saved you from saying even one of these 5 things the next time lights appear in your mirror, it did exactly what it was built to do. Subscribe to this channel and hit the like button right now. Every single like helps another driver find this video before their next stop instead of after it, when it is too late to matter. And drop a comment below telling us about your own traffic stop experience. What happened, what you said in the moment, and what you wish you had known going in. Your story helps shape exactly what this channel covers next, and reading it might be the moment someone else watching right now realizes they were not the only one who said one of these 5 things and wish they hadn't. Stay calm, stay protected, stay free.